Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff Wong, EY's Global Chief Innovation Officer, and also a very proud member of the AI for All Advisory Board. Just for those of you who don't know, EY is a global professional services organization with 320,000 people around the world in every major country and pretty much every major city. First off, I want to wish everybody a happy International Women's Day. As a dad to 3 daughters and a wife who is far more talented and intelligent than I am, it is a particularly important and special day for me. You know, around the world today, we are surrounded by disruption. Clearly, the pandemic has changed how we shop, how we live, how we socialize, how we entertain ourselves, and of course, how we meet. The pandemic, of course, isn't that only disruption around us. We have climate change, what I believe is the rightful calls for social justice and equality, and of course, conflicts that are around the world right now, both political and unfortunately military. And if you're like me, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by all the things that are happening around us. But I do like to think of this time also as an opportunity and maybe even a call to action. Advanced technologies like quantum computing and blockchain, and especially artificial intelligence, can help us in this changing world. For me, AI is the technology that will define the next generation of our lives, and frankly, for my kids' lives. And you know what? It already is. I was actually thinking about this on the ride in today, how much AI has surrounded me, even in the last day and a half. The food I ordered, the maps that I use, the music that my young 5-year-old put onto the station, onto our stereo system this morning, just by calling out into the air with her voice control, all AI driven and influenced. AI is defining the world that we live in already. And you know what? We see this commitment, not just from the world that surrounds us, but across industries and around the world. I'll use a simple example from ourselves, the professional services industry. At EY, and I'm fortunate to run the AI labs here amongst a few other things, we went from almost no AI in any platform or system that we used 5 years ago to 116,000 of our engagements using AI-driven products in 150 languages across 24 different AI-enabled platforms that we have around the world. AI is now built into the engines that run our primary platforms, on top of which we build our $50 billion a year business. We've also committed publicly $10 billion over a few years to technology. Of that $10 billion, $2.5 billion is committed to new tech, with, of course, a strong focus of those dollars on AI and data, right? Those two things together to make it powerful. And that's what makes me reflect on the world today. We in this community really have the opportunity to redefine the world using artificial intelligence. And inside that context, I wanted to really reflect on how important diversity and inclusion is as an imperative for us within AI. You know, I think we all realize that diversity isn't just a nice to have. It's not just for the pretty picture or the poster we want to put on our wall. It's a financial and strategic imperative. And actually, we've done a lot of studies on this. Teams and organizations are more effective, have higher customer satisfaction, and higher financial outcomes when they are diverse. So it's not just nice, it's important to us. It's important for us to answer the big questions. And for me, we cannot answer the big questions about climate and social justice and equality without diversity. And I believe, and I think this whole community believes, that the best answers here are going to be AI enabled, AI infused, AI at the core. And this to me is why AI for All is so central and critical to me, because it's not just about us and our community, it's about what we are doing to drive AI and diversity inclusion to help define the future of our world. So I wanted to end my sort of introductory remarks here on a personal note. I think everybody just saw Fei-Fei Li speak, and I had the opportunity to interview Fei-Fei earlier or in this past year via Zoom. And my daughter, one of my daughters, who's very into AI, asked me if she could actually cut class to watch that speech with Fei-Fei. And I told her no, as a parent, and for the parents who are on the call, I said, no, you can't cut class to watch Fei-Fei speak, but you can watch the replay later. And I asked her what makes her so passionate about wanting to cut class to watch Fei-Fei speak. As Fei-Fei, amazing speaker, obviously an amazing leader in the field. And what she said was, there aren't many examples in the industry of people who look like me. And Fei-Fei is one of them. This is the reflection of the importance of the work AI for All does in the world. It creates a community of leaders that can look like the next generation of leaders we need in order to help define AI for the future. So with that, I actually want to bring in a guest of ours, a friend of mine from the AI Advisory Board. So if you could bring Daphne up onto the screen. Hello, Daphne.
Hi, Jeff.
Daphne is another leader and example for my daughter to see in front of her as a role model in this industry. Daphne currently is the Senior Director of Machine Learning and Artificial Intelligence at Apple. She's built technologies from the ground up across both startups and established companies. Daphne, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit with some of the other companies you worked at. She's also worked at Google Research, Nest, Microsoft, right? Really, and who's who, or it's it of places that you would want to work in the artificial intelligence field. But perhaps what is most heartwarming, Daphne, about the role model you are, not just in the AI world, but also in the community, is you've taught art, music, and coached robotic programs at local elementary schools. I don't know where you find the time. And you, of course, have a list of awards, which I will not go through, which are longer than we have time left in this session. Daphne, first of all, thank you for being here. You are clearly a role model in the industry, and that's where I'd like to start. If you could spend a few moments talking about your journey into being such a leader in the AI field, but maybe start from the beginning. And if you don't mind, if you could give a little of your personal journey, that would be great.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm happy to be here, and happy International Women's Month. To start with, I was actually a first generation student for my family. My family came to the US as refugees when I was young. And I was really lucky to cross paths with, very generous and kind mentors, teachers, educators who provided me opportunities to shape who I am today. Here are a couple, experience that's very memorable to me. When I first came to the US, I actually didn't know how to speak English at all, right? So then my counselor, was betting on me. She let me sign up for really hard math and science classes. And I was having a hard time even doing word problems. So I had, a classmate who sat next to me, and she would explain the word problem for me. And then we did that for a while until I was finally able to get the same test score as hers, right? So that's great. Another very memorable experience is when I was chosen as the math chalk talk contest represent for our school. And I didn't have the outfit, and my counselor and teacher actually chipped in to buy me an outfit. Right. So along the way, that really shapes me as a person. That's why I do a lot of mentoring and giving back. So for work, similarly, I was after my first job, my manager told me to open new startups. So that's why I've been at many startups with different things. I try out new different things all the time. Like every new job, I try to work on the next big thing that's coming down the pipe. It's an example.
Daphne, I mean, just a remarkable own story, which we could spend the whole time on as well, on how you were the first generation. You didn't speak well, and to achieve where you are. I would love for you to give some maybe key takeaways or observations for you. You clearly were surrounded by mentors, but maybe for the parents or the educators on the call today, what are your key observations about how do you develop an AI leader today, from the ground up, from school up?
Yeah, very good question. I think we need to start early, right? Like as young as 8 years old, girls start to feel like, hey, they're not as good as boys in computer. So I think like elementary school and middle school STEM education is very critical to prepare students for high school. But it's never too late to start. So I want to make sure that's the case. So I am actually mentoring first generation college student at the local high school to help them apply to colleges. And I have one mentee. She took AP Calculus. She took AP Computer Science, have a 3.9 GPA, but she didn't think about going to tech because she didn't have the example and she didn't know better. So I think we should really need to fix that, right? Organization like AI for All is really important because it provides additional access and opportunity for our diverse underrepresented groups. Right now, most of the colleges and have AI curriculums. It's really important, I think, to not just teach the theories, but also hand-on experience to round it out. And it's also important to teach interview skill. I think getting the first internship is really important. That's how you get the second internship and such. And interview to get the job you want.
Daphne, clearly you're committed, not just at the sort of high level, but at the direct level. And that's such an amazing sort of giving of your own spirit and time. You also are a mentoring executive coach to social entrepreneurs through the Global Social Benefit Institute. Just wondering what you've learned from that experience as well, and frankly, for the audience to hear about how you're giving even more of yourself to the broader community.
Yeah. So what I learned is there are many very passionate social entrepreneurs who work super hard to make the world a better place. As a mentor, here's 3 things I learned. First, I work with very different organizations, from last mile distribution to clean water to even like fighting human trafficking, right? So here's 3 things that I learned. First, the organization had to be sustainable. If the organization dies, then you can't support your org, right? Super important. Second, as the organization's business model and impact model has to be aligned with the enterprise mission. For example, if you want to support education for the underserved, it has to be affordable, right? Otherwise, you want to charge and they can't come, right? And finally, what I learned is I really learned to listen well, right? Like don't think that you know everything. Local context is so important to make a solution work. For example, like health, right? Health for rural farmers. You need to be available during non-farming hour. Otherwise, no one would come to you, as an example. So lots of learning. I really enjoy learning. I actually think I learn more than the mentees that I mentor.
Daphne, being a part of such an amazing and dynamic space like artificial intelligence means that everything's changing a lot very quickly, right? The new technologies are coming, new methods, new concepts are coming so quickly. I'm just wondering if you could reflect on this for the high schoolers and college kids who might be listening in, or even, frankly, even younger. From my perspective, it's a real chance to help be a part of a field that's still emerging. It's already impactful, but there's still so much left to discover. Can you just talk about that discovery? What do you find interesting in AI, and what do you think is the fascinating problems that we're facing today and the opportunities we're facing today?
Yeah, great question. So I think the one advice that I give to myself and everyone is like always learn something new every day, right? I mean that in the sense that even during my one-on-one with my teams, I would say, hey, are you learning new things? What have you learned new, right? So in the, like you said, and Feifei and all, just through that, today's speaker and yesterday's, like AI is going so fast. I I do a lot. I read a lot of research paper. I have a stack of stuff, but the list gets bigger and longer and longer. So for our younger generation who's up and coming, I would say, learn something new, even though it's not in the AI space, but make it a habit. Like to learn something new that you want, and ask questions in general. Like if something that's interesting that you don't understand or curious about, go ask. Or something doesn't feel right, go ask question. And then finally, try something new, even those things that you think you might not like. I also have a 13-year-old girl, and she always say, Mom, because I think both our family, my husband are in tech. He's like, I don't want to be in tech, Mom, because it's boring. I was like, no, you need to, right? So you encourage them to do different things, like join a hackathon, try some coding, even though you think you might not like it, but you might, for example. So AI is growing and changing so fast that there's so many things that you can do with AI that, as a younger generation up and coming, you can actually change the world without, using AI and technologies.
Yeah, that's the implication. I'm sorry. First of all, I love the advice, curiosity, and always be willing to try. But also that last thing that you said, which is you really have an opportunity, even as a young person, to change the world, and particularly through AI. Let's talk about, as we both know, we've been together for many years on the advisory board. Part of the mission is around diversity and inclusion. Can you talk a bit about your thoughts around diversity and inclusion, particularly as it applies to AI and the importance of it in the world?
Yes, yeah, definitely. So, as our organization, right, diversity and inclusion is very important in our hiring and retention in general, but in AI in particular, because, bringing in lived experience, diverse representation on the product or AI that we build, because it affects every aspect of our life, like you said, right? So some example was like, making camera, work with our skin tone, for example, having when we were looking at data to say, hey, you're gonna look at sentiment of a picture, right? Like we show it to a young guy with someone jumping on a cliff, he might say, hey, it's exciting. But if you show it to like, a grandpa, he was like too dangerous, right? So having all these different viewpoint, it is very important. And AI for all, I'm really glad that AI for all is bringing, up and coming young student to be part of it and to help shape how things gonna look like, and bringing their point of view, right? The next generation point of view.
Daphne, you've advised, first of all, great perspective on, and great example for why diversity matters of all different sorts, right? Diversity, the gender diversity, ethnic diversity, background and heritage diversity, where you are from the world diversity, life experience diversity, and particularly in this field, because it's so impactful to changing the world, because we all know this is the technology that will define this next generation. In your roles, though, you've been giving advice and leading projects and teams for some of the world's leading organizations, and frankly, for some of the most impactful CEOs of the world right now, some of the companies that have led change in this world right now. So I'm going to twist this for you. What advice would you give, though, to my high school daughter, your high school daughter? What would you give to our kids in terms of advice of how to be a leader, maybe in AI, but really a leader in the world today? Just, taking what you've learned about giving advice to such senior leaders in the world. I'm just curious about where you would take this.
Yeah, so I think in general, working, especially here, I would say, be open-minded, right? Look at when you apply tech to problems, making sure that, the solution really fit what you're trying to fix. As an example, I do say that as young folks up and coming, ask questions and make try to look at things that's not right and try to fix it, and don't be afraid to change what's currently, how things are currently working, but make it better.
Daphne, I want to thank you for your insights today that you shared with the audience, but equally importantly, I want to thank you for being a role model to my daughter, but to kids around the world, that shows what's possible from your heritage, your background, your history, how hard you've worked to get there. So thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you from both of us to AI for All for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you.